Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. Today is June 5th, and we're here for the Public Safety and Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee. And I'm Laura Dominguez. I'm the chair of the committee. Along with me is Vice Chair David Suarez and Commissioner Joe Magazine. Commissioner Kristen Rosen Gonzalez will be arriving a little later. And joining us today is Commissioner Bott. And we have Assistant City Manager Mark Taxis, Deputy City Attorney Mark Fishman, and the fabulous Stephanie Ray Brooks. Do you have any announcements?
We do. We have a couple announcements. This meeting will be a hybrid meeting. You could come in person or dial in by dialing 312-626-6799 or using the Zoom account. We also have a couple of items that were deferred by the sponsor. I will read those items now. We have item number 4, discussion regarding concessions, regulations, and layouts to ensure that sufficient areas remain available at all times for public enjoyment of the beaches. Item number 7, discuss the creation of code compliance area captains positions for South Beach, Mid Beach, and North Beach. Item number 14, explore, provide options for establishing a nighttime drop-in center in Miami Beach. Item number 15, explore and provide options for establishing live assistance for homeless outreach services during after hours. And we have item number 18, discuss the potential implementations of a text message system to facilitate the reporting of code compliance. And then we have, I think, one more announcement.
Yes, Commissioner, your aide, the amazing Aaron, has brought to our attention that yesterday was a very, very special day. And we'd like to hijack your meeting for just a second because he brought you something out.
Thank you.
Happy birthday
What a great way to start our meeting off by singing you happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
birthday
to you. Happy birthday.
Thank you, everybody. That is so
They started
kind. You're in trouble. I like low-key birthdays. I keep it under the radar, but thank you. That's very kind.
Happy birthday.
Okay. Well, thank you. No, I'm redder than a tomato. And item number 6.
Right. Item number 6 is discussion regarding Bayshore Park, positive affirmations, and mental health signage. This was sponsored by Vice Mayor Dominguez.
Okay. David Gomez, how are you? You want to tee it up for us?
Sure. This is an item that was brought by yourself to the commission for referral here. It is a referral from the Youth Commission to install positive affirmation signage in the Bayshore Park project, which is currently under construction. It consists of, according to their recommendation, I believe it was 12 to 16 signs placed somewhere near the butterfly garden. And the idea is that either a local artist or students from the school would develop the signs and then the city would install them.
This was a beautiful suggestion that came from the Youth Commission, and high schooler Audrey, I believe was her name, sent in had an appointment with me, and then the Youth Commission later sent a letter to Commission. And we also have been in contact with an organization that does positive affirmations and poetry and other beautiful things for mental health and self-esteem and other positive things. And they do that at no charge. It's their passion is for the cause. And did you do any investigation on pricing or what they look like, prototypes? Do you have anything to show us?
Yeah, well, there is, as part of the memo, there are some examples that the Youth Commission provided. We did speak to the planning department, and it would require a review, possibly just for administrative approvals prior to installation to make sure that we're not violating any codes. We did speak to the building department, which will require a signage permit so that we can install these in the path, primarily for structural reasons to make sure that the signs are installed properly. And as far as pricing on the signs, we did not have the opportunity to get into pricing or even if a consultant would be required for the permitting process.
What would be the next step?
The next step is to look at just that, to see what we would require of a consultant for the permitting process, and then what the cost of the signage, actual signage would be. We did speak to our parking department, who has a sign shop, and they have the capabilities of printing it in-house. So it's a possibility that the cost would be relatively minor.
Okay. And do you think you would have that information by the June 26th meeting if we were to send this back to,
I believe we can get you a cost on that, yes.
okay, colleagues?
Yeah, I think this is exactly why we've been cognizant of getting younger people involved, right? Because some of the things that may not be on our radar and are important to certain members of our community, this is for them to bring to the forefront. So commend you on getting younger people involved, Laura, Commissioner.
You okay with it? All right, so we'll bring it back to the full commission, and thank you, Mr. Gomez. And number 13.
Okay, item number 13 is discuss broader expansions of tree canopy in North Beach.
Okay, this item is Commissioner Magazine. Would you like to tee it up?
Yeah, go.
Hi, Amy. Thank you, Chair. Any updates?
Well, good morning. Through the Chair and Vice Chair, Amy Knowles, Chief Resilience Officer. We took a look at this referral item. It's really an important item that introduces transformational change for North Beach. I think we all know that North Beach suffers from an urban heat island effect. There's very little tree canopy, really due to old development approaches, former approaches that didn't have enough right-of-way and plantable space. So what we did as a staff team is I brought together our public works team and transportation and planning and talked through some of the things that we already have in terms of plans and projects that can help going forward, and then introduced sort of some other innovative ideas, I think, for your consideration. And I'd be happy to run through those.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Sure. So we introduced about 7 different things. You know, one, we do have a North Beach tree planting pilot, which introduces planting smaller to medium-sized trees at the base of the diagonal parking. It creates triangular pits, and the benefits of there is that it requires little planting space. But the trees do have low chances of survivability because their root system, their root ball, just can't really expand, right? You're basically digging, you know, a hole in this concrete, putting soil in there, and really, you know, hoping that they last for a while to provide some relief. So that can be expanded, and that's actually another item on today's agenda. Another idea is this buoyant city concept. So back in, I think it was 2020 or so, the City Commission adopted the Buoyant City Plan, and that was done through the Planning Department, and it envisioned how can we protect our historic districts in the face of sea level rise and climate change. And it had some really interesting ways to save trees, including planting them in raised planters where they could survive over time. So as new infrastructure is introduced, as streetscapes change, as roads may need to be elevated, the trees could almost be more protected. So that is a really interesting idea. We also have the concept to select a location with defined boundaries and really study it, such as Parkview Island, where that area has probably less traffic, sort of less people, and could we really look at that, maybe hire a multidisciplinary firm to re-envision it. Maybe the streets change and there would be a real change in the fabric, but at least that area could benefit from more green space, there's water quality issues there, and more permeability. I already mentioned a multidisciplinary firm, so this would need landscape architecture, roadway changes, parking changes, maybe a multi-mobility needs. But we really have the opportunity to re-envision, again, long-term transformation change, but this could be a recommendations report that really focuses all of us. The next item is something that we already have on deck, and that's the North Beach Town Center North Shore D Neighborhood Improvement Project. So this is that longer-term, you know, infrastructure and climate adaptation project where new utilities would be introduced, you know, new roadways. There's about $10 million from our Resilient Florida grant program for the design phase. And what's really interesting here is that that project will integrate some of the better planting zonings that came from the North Beach Town Center. So for example, sidewalks have to be wider, the trees have to be larger to make sure that there's more shade in the future. So those are a couple things that are on the pike. And then our planning department had some ideas. There is some private property redevelopment happening in North Beach, and we could really urge more and better landscaping requirements in that area so that they're planting trees that would better benefit the right-of-way in those areas. So those are just a few things, some options to present for further discussion.
Originally, when I had this idea, I wanted to mimic what we had on Meridian Avenue with the calophyllum trees. Has there been any discussion about possibly making a canopy along Abbott, where, you know, it runs north to south through and through in North Beach, in one of the most unshaded areas?
I think as staff, we can take a look at that in particular. In general, what we've seen is that there will have to be a discussion on the streetscape, on the typology of the street, that we have to maybe give up things like parking and really work with the sidewalks and ADA compliance. So I think anything can be done. It's just a matter of what are the trade-offs, what is acceptable to the community. So we can get trees in, it's just a matter of is it acceptable, and are we willing to create more plantable space?
So I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I'm certainly interested in having maybe a consultant come up with a couple designs, renderings perhaps, on what they can do with creating a canopy, but knowing full well that, you know, we may be sacrificing some parking spaces. You know, what I have as far a vision for North Beach is sort of generational. I'd like to have a tree canopy that's going to last the next 100 years in Miami Beach. And so I'm open to hearing what my colleagues have to say.
Commissioner Magazine.
Thank you all. I agree with what Commissioner Suarez is saying, and certainly we have to also address the longer term. And when I think about what North Beach could look like in 40 years, I certainly am delighted at the thought that, you know, a tree canopy similar to Meridian Avenue would be possible. But again, that's longer term planning. And I think as we tackle climate change and resiliency, we have to look for innovative ways to cool our city. And what better way than green trees and things of that nature? So, you know, certainly addressing multiple issues with one solution. But I want to see if we've done any innovative exploration or thinking for things in the short and medium term. When we were talking about the parking lot item up in Mid-Beach, I did some research on more cost-efficient ways to essentially achieve the outcome that we were looking for, and looking at things like living urban canopies and things of that nature. Open-ended, very creative. Just wanted to kind of get your preliminary thoughts on if things like that would be a possibility where, yes, we plan longer term for 30 and 40 years and our true future, but if there's some small, quicker wins that we can get that really are on the cutting edge when you look at some of these, you know, futuristic urban planning designs that really incorporate green space, cooling, climate change resiliency, things that we could do in kind of the short term as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, Commissioner. We do have an urban heat island ordinance that actually requires new development to utilize cooler pavements. We have to have cool roofs. So we have a lot of those things already. And particularly in North Beach, when the new development comes, there's a requirement to add shade to the buildings so that people walking by have to have shade. So I think it's a very good point, a point well taken. There's also a movement towards depaving, like how do you pull back all this pavement and introduce cooler, you know, ground. But that does come with, like you said, like it comes with, I think, some work, some understanding that we may need to really, in Miami Beach, it tends to focus on the roadway. Like, how do we reclaim from the roadway, because we can't necessarily go into private property, and the sidewalks really have to maintain the ADA accessibility. So it kind of comes down to that roadway and that width.
I have a question. I thought I was under the impression that our city had an urban forestry master plan in place, And
do.
what was the vision for North Beach in that plan?
Yeah, so the North Beach Master Plan, and we actually, in your packet, there's some examples, and I think it's from, on the other item that was requested, but there's a lot of specifications for how to plant trees within our landscape. And it has great diagrams, and really what it introduces is this concept of suspended pavements, and we do have a presentation on that if you'd like to see it, but it's really allowing space for the roots to grow, and so that the pavement on top doesn't crush the roots, and so that they can spread out. And we have great examples across the city that shows those trees are thriving in comparisons to other areas where they don't have them. For example, in front of the Lincoln Eatery, there's some really nice bridal veil trees, and they're very, very leafy. We do that as part of the urban forestry master plan, and I think for North Beach, it's very much looking at things like the planters and these different ways to integrate the trees.
So the difference between the urban forestry master plan for the trees and what's being proposed now is now this item wants one tree-lined street with a canopy.
Well, I think that there's the urban forestry master plan is a toolkit, kind of depending on the conditions, like what you can do. So it doesn't say specifically you should do in North Beach this thing.
Okay.
But it does say here are the type of trees appropriate for different conditions and how to plant them so they survive the salt tolerance and all that.
Vice Chair?
Welcome.
Commissioner Bott?
So I love the idea of getting more trees into North Beach. I think that's really important. I would just make a couple of suggestions as the group goes forward and looks at what to do and how to do it. I don't know how Abbott was selected, and maybe it's because of this, but having walked these streets, with my dogs and biked them, whichever of those main thoroughfares is the most pedestrianized, would be my view on where to start. And so, without having any data, just anecdotally, it seems like maybe Dickens might be that, because you've got all these sort of junction points of people going to the playground on Parkview and eventually back to the kayak ramp, going to the ball fields, going to the tennis center, going to the schools that are there. And that might be the place to start, but I defer on that. But the other thing is, I know parking is such a critical issue in North Beach, and so is speeding. And so my wish would be, instead of removing parking spots, is to reimagine the road widths and build out the sidewalks a bit further, which kills two birds with one stone. So you don't lose the parking and you slow the rate of transit. So you're not removing necessarily a lane, so there's still plenty of transit. You're just not having people blast through at 15 or 20 miles above the speed limit, which I think is a highly desirable goal also. So that would be my input, but go team.
Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. So it doesn't have to be Abbott. It can be whatever staff recommends. I just picked Abbott because it just runs through north and south. But if there is a more suitable avenue that works best, but again, like you said, the master plan is more of like a toolkit. It's not a visionary plan. What I'd like to have is something more visionary for the next 30, 50 years, similar to the like what Meridian Avenue did. And I think North Beach would benefit tremendously from something like that. So I guess I should make a motion to direct staff to find a consultant to come up with some draft ideas for a tree canopy in North Beach.
If I may, I would suggest bringing it to the full commission so that then we can refer it to the finance committee, since there will be costs involved with that.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 1.
Okay, item number 1 is discuss update on the tree planting pilot program on North Beach.
Okay.
And so this is very similar. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez is in class right now, but she said that this item could be heard. Amy, can you tee it up?
Sure. Well, since we heard the item back in March, Environment Sustainability has worked with the Public Works Department to locate areas to expand this tree planting pilot. And just as a reminder, this is where that diagonal parking is being retrofitted to have triangular tree pits that will allow some space for small to medium-sized trees. So the 6 trees are still, they're doing well, and we are carefully monitoring them. We're hoping that, in August it'll be 1 year, and we're hoping for that survivability. Our urban forester says 4 years is really the target to know if something is going to stand, survive. But in the meantime, it is providing, vegetation and some greenery for the neighborhood. So we did identify 40 additional locations that are spelled out in your memo. They're all located on 78th, 79th, and 80th Street. So that area is that very dense, very hot, very densely populated. We did receive one bid at a cost of $179,200 for about 16-foot trees. And it would be about $4,480 per planting pit. So that is the cost of the tree plus the cost of the cutting into the concrete and doing that work. We could help utilize GOB funds to help with the small portion that's the actual tree, which might be around $1,000. So we would have funding for that. So we wanted to share this with you. Another action item you had asked was for public-private partnerships. And so how do we increase private property to plant trees? And we can definitely do a tree giveaway. My department can do that. We have funding for that in North Beach. We did one in February, but we can do another one with very dedicated outreach in this particular area to encourage people to, accept our trees and to plant them on their property as well.
Thank you. Vice Chair, did you have a comment?
No.
Commissioner Bott, since you live in North Beach,
Any trees anywhere in North Beach is a good outcome, in my view. I'm thinking about, it's one thing to sort of retrofit existing streetscapes where you can pop in a tree and hope that they survive. There are 3 things. There's doing that. There's looking at the roadways and where we can reclaim some of the space from the travel lanes to the sidewalks, which would give us more opportunity to park more trees, to plant more trees. But the area that's like and even looking at 71st and Normandy are these speed zones where, and I know Jose and the FDOT team and everybody are working on that collaboratively, but boy, that would be a great place for this kind of a program where, there's no place to cross, people walk there all the time, and people are going way too fast, and so reclaiming some of the sidewalks there would be fabulous. But, the biggest opportunity for transformative change, in my view, is Parkview Island, which is this blank slate of a canvas where there are literally no sidewalks on most of the island. There's zero shade other than the beautiful little playground, which is a lovely oasis, but that's what it is. When you walk in, there are shrubs, but there's no shade, there's no sidewalks for most of the island, and the infrastructure is in sore need of upgrading anyhow. It's an island in transition right now, and I think it would make it really, it would be a great laboratory, I think, for the city to figure out what could be done, how to do it effectively. It's not going to affect a lot of traffic, so you're not going to have issues with people not being able to get their kids to school or whatever. So as you look at the opportunities for things that my colleagues are bringing up, I would throw into the mix, and I know we need to find the printing press for money in the basement someplace, but I would throw into the mix, let's look at this as an opportunity where we can test things out and put together more than just a toolkit of things to choose from, but here's a game plan to transform literally a desert, an island, a heat island, and make it something really beautiful and sustainable, and learn along the way so that when we start going into areas where there might be more traffic impacts or mobility impacts, we've already learned some of the lessons, and it's easier to execute and kind of go in and do it surgically and have it work.
And through the chair, Commissioner, would you like that one that might be best suited for item 13, where we think about picking areas and that could really be examined? Because I do think that would be a multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah, so, I don't want to take away from the idea of a tree canopy on a main area, a main thoroughfare. I think it is transformative also, but North Beach has so many of these areas that could use some like I said, Normandy and 71st Streets and Parkview and, the pedestrianized, whether it's Dickens or one of the other main thoroughfares. So just don't forget about it as you're contemplating. And, have whoever you hire to do the work walk through there with them and see what that sparks, because that might be a totally different way to approach things than a tree canopy on a major thoroughfare, but it may be something that can be done concurrently. And then, I don't know, I'm not the expert, but whoever you hire presumably will be, and we'll be all excited at the possibility of trying to do this.
Go ahead. Vice Chair.
Back to the item 1. Do the trees get warranted? Do they have a warranty?
For these, I'm not certain. I'd have to check with Public Works. I don't believe so, because that would add dramatically to the cost. And then there are, some concerns with the survivability. If we were doing suspended pavements, I think that would be maybe a little bit easier, but they would be a lot more expensive as a project. But at this point, I don't believe we have a warranty phase. I think we have a year of watering, but might have to get back to you on that one.
And I believe we have public comment.
She actually just put her hand down. No public comment, no.
No?
There was, but
Okay.
she put her hand down.
Well, thank you so much. This item talked about funding and the
She's
cost
back. I think she may
for
be
the
happy.
trees and GeoBond funds. So after we hear public comment, I think we should refer this back to the full commission with a referral to finance so that that committee could look at the numbers.
All right, if we could have Elizabeth Latone unmute, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm listening to all of this about North Beach. I'm so thrilled at the possibility of trees anywhere here, as all of you have indicated. I would like to also, if it's possible, when you come back and you're choosing areas in item number 13, can we also look at the areas south of 71st, possibly the Dune area? We have absolutely no shade. The only shade that we get are from the buildings, and it's brutal. As Commissioner Bott said, it's a heat island in Parkview, but it's also the rest of us. I'm not quite sure how that works as far as FDOT in the islands, but if you can look at the if you can look at the shrubbery in the islands, we do have some palms, but those aren't exactly great for shade when you're walking on the sidewalks. And I just wanted to encourage that and just say thank you all for bringing this up. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, so
Okay, so we'll close it out with a favorable recommendation to FERC.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 17.
Item number 17 is discuss implementing a program similar to Monroe County's free mobile pump out service for vessels. And this item was referred by Vice Mayor Dominguez.
So this item came up because our mooring field is a couple years away, and the boats that are currently in the harbor, from what I've seen and I've been told, they're not pumping out anywhere. And even when we've had FWC go on the boats to check them, and they've been compliant, it doesn't mean that they're not pumping out into our bay, and we really can't have that. I came across something from Monroe County where a grant helped fund 75% of it, and I just wanted me and my colleagues to hear a little bit more.
Well, certainly. Good morning, everyone. Elizabeth Miro, Interim Director for Facilities and Fleet Management. So Monroe County actually started this program internally first in 2009, and it was only for Key Largo. And then they partnered in 2013 with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And through that grant, they were able to expand to other areas in the Keys. And basically since 2021, FDEP has managed this program. So basically it does allow for 75% funding through their Clean Vessel Act, and the 25% is actually supplemented through local or state funding. This will allow for the construction, renovation and operation and maintenance of any pump out stations.
Colleagues?
Generally, I'm not a fan of having a an amenity that only attracts more of what we don't want to have on the bay. And so, you know, if you provide a method for people to pump out where they don't have to move, because we have a pump out at Miami Beach Marina. It's only
We do.
$10.
We do.
But the problem is these boats are in such bad shape they can't drive to the marina. So the last thing I want to do is encourage more liveaboard activity off our shores to stay here, because now we have a pump out service that goes to them. I mean, it seems like it's nice for it to be free and granted and have grants for it, but you know, I think you know, the direction our commission is going is to discourage liveaboard activity because of the same reasons that we want to get a mobile pump out. And so I think I think if we were the Keys, it would be different. And I think with the mooring field, we're going to be required to have a pump out vessel, or we just have a pump out station, which we already have. I'm not sure. So maybe we table this until the mooring field is at 100% design, or not design, but I guess a shovel in the water, so to speak. And then we can, because we're going to have to cross this bridge eventually. I don't know if we want to do that before the mooring field gets here.
Yeah, my thought was not have this be permanent, but a temporary, so that they stop polluting the bay, because they're not moving, they're not pumping out, even though that there is something at the Miami Beach Marina. But I understand what you're saying, Commissioner
Yep.
Magazine.
So excuse me for my elementary questions and understanding here, not my area of expertise, but want to have some dialogue to understand. So I read those reports of the news articles that said that the boaters were, sorry if it's the wrong terminology, in compliance or weren't polluting, but then we see them stationary and we don't have mobile pump outs. How can we rectify those two? And apologies if you're not the expert to ask it. You're just standing here at the podium. So, you know, please plead the fifth if it's not your area of expertise either.
I would say it's probably not my area of expertise, I will say that. But, you know, what we know is that we do have this amenity available for the Miami Beach Marina. We do, you know, we provide the service as it is.
Oh. Amy, thank you.
Amy's our expert.
So essentially, we don't have documented sampling that shows that there's sewage being released into the bay in that area. That doesn't mean it isn't. It just means that there might be flushing and dilution happening, that those sampling hits aren't coming up. So I think where you have real chronic areas of, you know, like we have in Parkview Canal, that's a real serious issue with very little flushing, 81 acres draining into that canal. That's really where we're seeing those big hits of the fecal indicator bacteria. So I think that's where those comments came out.
I appreciate that. Then just one follow-up. So we're talking about offering this free of charge? And I guess if they have a service like this at the Miami Beach Marina, which they charge for, this seems like a concierge amenity, right? I would absolutely love to have a boat out on Biscayne Bay and have somebody come to me to cater to my needs, right? But financially, I'm not able to do so. But presumably, the people that have the luxury of having a boat out in Biscayne Bay would have the means to essentially have this concierge service. And I guess I just get hesitant having our taxpayers subsidize people that may or not even be Miami Beach residents, right? They just have their boat parked there. And now we're saying, we understand it may be an inconvenience for you to go a few blocks down to Miami Beach Marina, so let us bring somebody to you. And not only that, that'd be fine if a private business wanted to essentially subsidize a concierge amenity.
It's a grant.
Grant. I just have, not a problem, you know, I'm like, okay, well, that seems like quite a luxury that we're providing to people with the luxury of living on a boat out in Biscayne Bay, it almost seems like more of a concierge service. I think it may be needed. But those are just my thoughts. I don't have a strong, inclination one way or another.
Vice Chair Suarez.
Yeah, look, it's funny because I met a few boaters out there who are very nice and well-to-do people, and one of them told me that, look, despite what everyone tells you, most of us just flush our toilets into the bay, and there was this one-time operation where FWC and Marine Patrol went out, and they found 2 out of 39 people incompliant. And in fact, I thought it was strange that they even found 2, because the moment you see lights on in the Biscayne Bay, and you're in this community, they're very connected. They have WhatsApp and Telegram groups. I've seen it, and they basically say that, hey, the police are here, close your valves, and all you have to do is turn your seacock valve a quarter turn, and you're in compliant, and whatever they test, you're going to pass. So I was surprised they even got 2 violations, but I think what Commissioner Magazine, his line of reasoning is the same as mine. We're going to sort of encourage more of what we don't want in Miami Beach. But this would require a facility, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So, something doesn't sit right with me creating a facility, because we're going to have to give up some land that we have to cater to residents or non-residents who live on the water to pump out their poop. Okay. Considering we have a station for $10 at Miami Beach Marina, I think that's perfectly fine. Perhaps to meet halfway, we can give a voucher for anyone who is a liveaboard who goes to Miami Beach Marina to bring their boat there, and we'll eat the $10, or we can ask Suntex to just not charge that fee. But I certainly don't want to be in the direction of enabling more of what we don't want in Miami Beach.
Thank you. I'm happy to close this item out. My intention was to have a clean bay until the mooring field is built. And so now we're not, because they're not going to go to the Miami Beach Marina. They're not doing that now, and they're going to continue for the next few years as people are paddleboarding and kayaking in that bay in dirty water, which is unfortunate. I do like your idea of maybe encouraging with a voucher or something, but the reason I like this was because there was a grant involved, and it wouldn't be a major cost to the city. But let's close it out, and let's move on to number 8.
Okay, and I'm going to close that out with no action. Okay, number 8 is discuss expanding MB Residents Connect portal to allow neighborhood associations to receive targeted notice of certain special magistrate hearings relating to individual properties in the neighborhood. And this was an item by Vice Mayor Dominguez.
So I've had many meetings with West Avenue folks and people in North Beach, and our special magistrates process. I've submitted some improvements, and so have the residents, and we've also met with different members of the city administration, including IT, to make it easier, better for residents to know about appeals or other special magistrates things. So if you want to take it away, Mr. Quintana.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Frank Quintana, CIO. So in 2017, our department created a tool called Resident Connect, which essentially allows any residents to sign up for notifications based on agenda items on either the full commission agenda or any of the subcommittees. And that allows for them to sign up for particular keywords, for terms that they would like to receive a notification that there will be a hearing on a particular field. Today, the city is also transitioning away from the existing Novus agenda, as you all are aware, to a new solution called One Meeting from Granicus. That's the result of a RFP that was done in coordination with the clerk's office. So the functionality of Resident Connect is transitioning from the homegrown application that our team built to this new agenda platform that's more modern and offers a lot of additional functionality. One of the things that we've had extensive conversations with Granicus over is once we go live with the new agenda platform, which we're weeks away from starting our first commission meeting with that, and everything settles and we can kind of close out that project, we've started discovery conversations with them about how we can add the functionality for special magistrate. And we hope to have a functional option with that later this summer. So it's definitely something that we're looking at. It will not be through the Resident Connect application necessarily, but it'll be consistent with the functionality that we're providing with the new agenda platform.
That is great. Thank you so much. I know it's been a lot of layers on top of everything else that you've been working on. I really appreciate that you made this a priority. Thank you. Is there any public comment? Commissioner
Yeah,
Magazine.
Madam Chair, kudos to you. I think anything that we can do to provide transparency and make it easier for our residents to stay engaged, all for it. And thanks for the leadership on this. You know, the one thing, Frank, that I'll ask is, I heard that you'll be trying to add the keyword functionality. Is there also a proximity functionality? So if we would say, I live on West Avenue, maybe I'm not going to put in Mondrian, West Avenue, all these different keywords that could possibly be catched, but I may want to receive a notification for anything happening related to something within 10 blocks of my house.
Sure, so that's a great question. And actually, the discussion we had with them, which we feel is the most practical application of what you're asking, is to do it by areas. So you'll be able to sign up for South Beach, Mid Beach, North Beach, so it's a little wider. There is no geographic pinpointing necessarily because, you know, if you're across the street from an area, maybe it doesn't, that gets to be a lot of guesswork that it's a hard thing to technically compensate for. So the discussions that we've had with Commissioner Dominguez and some of the feedback we've received from our residents is the area of the beach is probably the best application of that. So you'll receive anything, for example, special magistrate, that's South Beach. So we're looking at it from that perspective. As with a lot of things in technology, sometimes the idea works great, but the application doesn't. So we're going to try to apply the things we believe that work, get feedback, and then take it from there. And if we need to pivot, we'll do so. But right now, the intention is to go the zone or the area direction.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So thank you for the update. Really appreciate it. We can close this item out and move to item 16.
Okay. Number 16 is discussion regarding an installation of a bus, General Don Jose de San Martin at Collins Park, and this was sponsored by Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Thank you. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, good morning. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Cindy Casanova, Assistant Director for the Parks Department. So as outlined in your memo, the item that you have before you is a motion that was passed at the January 2024 Hispanic Affairs Committee to honor General Jose de San Martin at Collins Park, similar to the other historical figures that are honored in Collins Park, such as Simon Bolivar, Jose Marti, and Benito Juarez. General Jose de San Martin is a revered historical figure noted for his independent movements for the countries of Argentina, Chile, and Peru. The cost to produce, permit, design, and install the monument at Collins Park is approximately between $30,000 to $35,000. And it would be a monument similar in nature to the other monuments that I mentioned, such as Jose Marti, Simon Bolivar, and Benito Juarez. It would be a bronze bust affixed to a stone pedestal with a bronze plaque affixed to it for informational purposes.
Did we pay for the other monuments that are there?
I believe we paid for the other ones that are there with the exception of Benito Juarez. The bust was gifted to the city by the Mexican consulate, and we paid for the pedestal, which was approximately $18,000.
Is there any help that the Argentine consulate can give? And
I would have to check with the Hispanic Affairs Committee on what connections they have with the consulate to see if there's any opportunities there for some sort of partnership.
Okay. I would recommend that this go back to the full commission with a referral to the Finance Committee for discussion. Mark Fishman?
Yes, if I could, Madam Chair, I get the idea. If this committee is in favor of this item and would like to provide a favorable recommendation, the city code requires that because it's not just a simple plaque, it's a bust, not a sculpture, but a bust or a sculpture, those type of things have to be referred to the Art and Public Places Committee. The Art and Public Places Committee will review it, and along with the PSN QLC recommendation, the AIPP recommendation will ultimately get transmitted to the full City Commission. So I would recommend, if the committee's in favor of this item, to transmit it to AIPP.
Colleagues, are you okay with that? Okay. Item number 12.
Okay, item number 12 is discuss the placement of a plaque in honor of civil rights activist and preservationist Joe Tom Easley at Pride Park, and this is sponsored by Commissioner Bott.
Commissioner Bott.
So Joe Tom Easley was a leading advocate, and I do mean leading, for civil rights, gay rights, human rights, historic preservation, specifically here in Miami Beach. He was a devoted member of this community. He lived in Palmview Island. He passed away recently, and we have a history of calling out and paying homage to our residents who have made significant contributions, and we would like to do that for this resident in Pride Park on the corner adjacent to Palmview Island. And we've discussed that it's a very low impact cost. The desired effect would be a plaque near a tree, a beautiful shady spot on the northwest corner of the park. And with that, I'd like to get your support for it.
Any other comments on this, Cindy?
No, she covered it all.
Okay, so Commissioner Bott, I was on the Palmview Zoom when they talked about this item, and I'm happy to support this. I'd like to hear from my colleagues. Vice Chair Suarez.
I was also on the Zoom, and I fully support it. I'd like to move with a favorable recommendation.
Colleagues?
Sure.
Okay,
We have one public comment.
please.
If we could hear Mitch Scott. Mitch Scott, you have 2 minutes. Please unmute yourself. Mitch, you are still muted. If you could please unmute yourself. We cannot hear you yet. If we could hear Daniel Seraldo, since we can't have Mitch. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commission. Daniel Seraldo with Miami Design Preservation League. I just wanted to thank you all for moving this forward. Joe Tom was a great resident of Miami Beach. He also served on many boards, including Miami Design Preservation League, even during a period of illness at the end of his life. And this is a great way to recognize him and all of the work that he did for so many communities, whether the preservation community, LGBT, Miami Beach, etc. And we're very excited and thankful for this effort. Thank you.
We have Mitch Scott. Can you please unmute yourself? I see you raised your hand again. Okay, I think there's technical difficulties. I don't think we can get him. Okay, so close public comment.
Okay. All right, so moving on to item number 2.
Item number 2 is discuss the utilization of mobile arrest processing centers to decrease the time police officers spend away from their assigned areas of responsibility.
Vice
And
Chair
this
Suarez.
item, yeah.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Major Daniel Morgallo from the Police Department here to discuss the item. First off, on behalf of the Chief and the rest of the administration of the Police Department, we thank the Commissioners and the committee for bringing this topic up because it reflects your commitment to helping us improve our processes and raise our visibility throughout the city. With regard to this particular item, however, the Chief and the administration feel that the addition of mobile arrest processing centers would not necessarily solve a problem and could create unintended consequences that impact our rules of evidence, chain of custody, requiring additional officers to be off the road because they're now added into the chain of custody and evidence processing for court purposes later on. In looking at our processes that this conversation initiated, the majority of our arrests do not require officers to leave their assigned areas. We have increased the number of departmental detention officers. We have a budget request to increase one more position as a detention officer, which allows the in-field transfer of custody of the prisoner. And the majority of our arrest cases don't involve our officers having to go to the station and impound evidence. In those cases where we do have to, more serious cases, felony cases, cases requiring investigative support, detectives conducting interviews and things like that, the involved or arresting officer is still going to have to leave the field to provide information, firsthand information to detectives for follow-up and things like that. So this particular item, although very well intentioned and very well received, may not provide the desired effect. But we are willing to continue to have conversations to improve our processes, to increase the level of our visibility in the field and increase our efficiency and our effectiveness at conducting operations.
Commissioner Magazine.
Yeah, thank you for that. How about for high-impact weekends?
So-
Would this be a suitable option for a high-impact weekends? And where I'm ultimately going with this is, I've been following some of the commentary back and forth for going on 10 years now, prior to Chief Jones, Chief Clements, and then Chief Oates. And at this very committee, I would see Chief Clements take the stand and say, you know what, we have to be cautious about really policing lower level crimes during high impact week, paraphrasing, during high impact weekends, because yes, we could make all these arrests, but it's ultimately taking officers off the street. And the conversation just stopped there. So I said, okay, we've identified a problem, but we never took it one step further and identified a solution. And I'm not going to try and jam a solution down your throats if it doesn't make sense, but I also don't want to just leave this open-ended problem that we have identified for 10 years out there without any direction about how we're going to essentially thread that needle. So if it's not this, I'd at least like some of your feedback, not you personally, but collectively as the police department going forward about, okay, we've identified this problem of it just takes officers too long if we make lower level arrests and it's taking, important resources off the streets. Okay, well, how can we actually then solve that? And then if you could also address whether this would be appropriate just for high impact weekends.
So for high impact weekends, we create mechanisms in place where we have Miami-Dade County Corrections come to Miami Beach and pick up prisoners here at Miami Beach. We have additional resources in place to help speed along that process. So if the desire of the individual officer or the organization is that arrests be the primary mechanism to deal with the problems that we're dealing with out on the street, the resources are there to facilitate that process. And I brought it up during spring break when we had increased resources during those high impact weekends, and we explained to officers, do not be hesitant to utilize your ability to arrest if you have probable cause, because the mechanisms are in place to facilitate that process. So when we have high impact weekends, we have the resources here to speed along that process as much as possible.
Yep, and I saw firsthand with my own two eyes and ears, you make those exact comments to staff during spring break check-in. So I appreciate that commentary.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bott.
Just for a point of reference for all of us talking about this issue, I definitely support this idea, the concept of how do we keep folks on the street doing their job rather than doing the grunt work of getting people to jail. And to that end, I had submitted, I can't remember where, at the last commission meeting, and it was referred to finance, I think, the addition of 2 additional I think they're non-sworn officers to help with the transport issues, to be jailers, so that the officers get the people they're arresting off the street and into our Miami Beach jail facility. And then there are 2 more people who can help with the transport to the county facility without having to pull a sworn officer off what he or she is doing. So hopefully that will be passed in the upcoming budget, and that will help alleviate this. It's a little bit of a different approach. I understand they're not mutually exclusive, but hopefully that will help alleviate some of this issue, which is a real one.
Okay, so this was initially Mayor Minor's item. I'm going to close it out here, but I will ask you to set up a meeting with the mayor to ensure he understands this process and if there's anything else that he wants to do to move in a different direction.
Absolutely. Thank you. Understood.
Thank you, Major.
I'll take care.
We have item number 11, discuss the Miami Beach Commission for Women implementing a call to artists to create a mural honoring Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Majority Stoneman Douglas Park. And this is sponsored by Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
For the last item, did you say there was public comment?
There was, but they lowered their hand. by the
Okay,
time that
thank
it
you.
closed.
Okay, so who had co-sponsored this?
No, just Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. Sorry.
Hi, Lisette. You want to tee it up for
Yes, good
Commissioner Rosen
morning
Gonzalez?
and happy birthday, Madam Chair and committee members. Lisa Arrogante, Director of Tourism and Culture, City of Miami Beach. So this seems like a really wonderful suggestion from the committee to have a mural honoring Marjorie Stoneman Douglas at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Park. So the procedure would be then to go to AIPP, present this to them, and also advise on a call to artists. We would identify funding from AIPP as well, and then we would go back to commission.
Okay, colleagues, okay to send this back to commission?
Yeah, can I just ask, Liz, just a quick high-level question? So many cities, our contributions to a city are looked at as, giving back to your community and things like that. And I know with so many initiatives, we're going out and paying for our pieces and things like that. Do you feel as if we're underutilizing the public and private resources that we have in our community, so many great people where we don't get contributions of art, where we're actually going out and, paying for all of it? Or am I misguided and we actually do receive a lot of that pro bono?
So that's a two-part question, right? All municipalities go through this process through AIPP. We do a call for artists. We commission unique works of art. We do accept donations, and we have had in the past. Actually, Jaume Plensa, the Minna piece that you see in Pride Park was recently donated by the Brayman family. So we do have opportunities. Obviously, it does have to go through AIPP as well for approvals, because not all work is at the same level that we have in our collection.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. So we'll send it back to the full commission.
We have one public comment,
Thank you.
Daniel Seraldo.
Yep.
Daniel, you'll have 2 minutes. If you could please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. And also happy birthday to the Vice Mayor as well. Daniel Seraldo with Miami Design Preservation League. Just want to give a little background on why it's called Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Park. Back in the 1980s, there was a push by the city commission to convert many of the parks in Miami Beach along the oceanfront into parking garages. And there was a proposal to build a large parking garage right there. Somebody who we all know very well, Ms. Barbara Bear-Kappeman, joined together with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to protest the destruction of oceanfront parkland in replacement with a large garage. They won that battle. I think it was Tibor Hollow at the time who wanted to build a garage. And we have a great photograph in our archives of Barbara and Marjorie there at the protests to save the park. So it's very exciting that the Miami Beach Commission for Women had this great idea to honor Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and the many things that she has done for the community, along with many others. And we're very supportive of this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Done with public comment.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll close that item with a favorable recommendation.
Yes.
Item number 9 is discuss the continuation options for Florida Fresh Market, and this is brought by tourism.
Good morning, Madam Chair. So as For some of the members on the committee, I can share some context regarding this item, which is Florida Fresh Markets. A few years ago, we did an RFP to have an artisanal market in Loomis Park. It did have some pushback, however, it went through. They are an excellent operator. Then after they opened in September of 2022, we expanded the market to include 41st Street and other locations. It was found difficult for them to activate 41st Street, so we retracted that back. We still continued receiving a lot of pushback from the ADCD stakeholders regarding this activation, even though we have no complaints from the administration as far as them being a professional operator. In July 10th of last year, we sent them a letter to terminate the agreement, and their last activation in Loomis Park was on August 6th of 2023. The item then came back much later, and they had a previous sponsor, which is no longer part of the commission, to allow for a 6-month pilot to help them come back to Loomis Park. The administration started negotiating with them the 6-month pilot. During that process, they asked if they can start the pilot in October, in the fall of 2024. And so that's why we're here. They're asking, we didn't begin earlier in the year because they're requested to be part of the season. When they have activated the market in the past, they can't activate in March, obviously, and there's other holidays or activations that preclude them from activating.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've heard from the Ocean Drive community, residents and businesses, and they do not want this. So I would be a no vote on continuing with the pilot on Ocean Drive. If there are other places to explore to do the pilot, that would be fine, but I would not vote in favor of it. I'd love to hear from my colleagues. Commissioner Magazine.
Yeah, maybe before, Madam Chair, or at least reserve my right after we hear some public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there public comment?
There is public comment, and I think there's public comment in person too, so if you want, we could do 1-on-1. You could, yeah. Yeah.
Hello, Ceci Velasco. I'm the Executive Director of the Ocean Drive Association. Yes, the Ocean Drive Association did take a stand, the board, that they do not want the artisanal market, various reasons. One aspect that I think goes undetected is that these tents go up every single Saturday morning and come down every single Saturday evening. The same thing happens on Sunday morning and Sunday evening. We're America's Riviera. People pay prime rates to be right there, not to be seeing tents going up and tents going down. It obscures the view. We are pushing for higher rates for our hotels. This actually makes it unattractive. So I think that's one aspect that really hasn't been considered. A lot has been talked about the quality and where it is and that type of thing. But from the perspective of the hotels and the restaurants, please understand anything that is obstructing the view on a weekend where they're full capacity is a negative economic impact to them. Thank you.
Commissioner Magazine.
Yeah. Thank you, Ceci. And, maybe if you don't go far, I'll ask you as our resident expert. Would the ODA be against any type of activation? Where my personal observations, this is how I feel without having the chance to discuss, is, the quality was concerning there. It just seemed, and I don't mean to disparage anybody, somewhat cheap, generic. You would just see it in anywhere. Not America's Riviera. So if we would limit this, and I'm not talking about this vendor, but just going forward, thinking about ideas and activations, would we be open to something like a more gourmet market, something smaller in scale that had a much higher quality attraction? Or are we just saying collectively, we don't think this is the place for anything?
We don't think this is the place for the tents going up, whether they're gourmet. And what we have found is the previous market did try to do foods like a fresh market, like a farmer's market, like they have in Lincoln Road. They were not able to keep and sustain that. People just are not coming from the south of 5th and Flamingo Park area walking over to buy groceries or produce like they do on Lincoln Road, which is a mall. It started gourmet and then it starts trickling down, but it really is the load in and the build out that is a negative. As people are coming out of Untitled and Scope, they're seeing tents coming down, thermoses full of things. It's just not the optics that we want.
And again, I have nothing in mind. I'm just using this as a back and forth dialogue. So we've talked about that. How about the frequency? Would there be appetite or even desire to do something like the Lincoln Road Farmers Market? I don't think that's every Sunday, right? Is that one Sunday per month, the Lincoln, or is that every Sunday?
I think it's every weekend. Yeah.
Is it? Okay. And would the ODA be against an activation like one weekend per month? Because you just don't want it happening every single weekend? Or again, is it just we're against?
I think there's a place for it, and it's not on Ocean Drive in Lummis Park.
No, I appreciate
We have
the feedback.
hotel. I mean, Lincoln Road has no hotels, right? So it's a whole different place. But we have all those beautiful hotels that are somewhat small, historic, costly to maintain. So we want to keep the ADRs up. I think this is the way to do it, to have a clear, beautiful, unobstructed view as much as possible.
I appreciate the feedback. That's what I wanted to get. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 public comments online. Tony Morales, if you could please unmute yourself.
Thank you. And hi, Commissioners. My name is Tony Morales. I represent Florida Fresh Markets, the vendor and operator of the artisanal market in Lummis Park. I want to add to some historical context here. When this RFP process began, the city and staff enumerated a set of parameters for the market to include the use of tents and the types of categories of food and good that would be offered at the market. We have received and been responsive to the feedback around the interest in gourmet and the move in aesthetic. And so in this recontracting period, we've aligned with city staff on the elimination of tents altogether to sidestep that concern, and the implementation of Art Deco thematically consistent umbrellas, similar to what we use in other luxury properties like the Square in West Palm Beach, as well as the Bal Harbor market that we operate. With respect to the categories themselves, the direction we got from the commission when it voted 6-1 to reinstall this market in a 6-month pilot period was to thematically build around a healthy market, meaning the elimination of those prepared foods and sort of lower brow items that the city had previously requested, and instead a rotation toward produce, which we have been able to sustain and which was present at every iteration of the market from its inception. Final thing I want to reference just for context here is while this item sort of went through several meetings, we had tens of members of the community, a mixture of our vendors, more than a quarter of whom are Miami Beach residents themselves, as well as residents from the directly adjacent apartment buildings who came out in support of this item. We had petitions with over 300 Miami Beach residents signing in support of the reinstallation of this market. And so I do want to just re-enter for context here that there is tremendous community support, and that the pilot period of 6 months that was authorized by the commission is to give a shot at taking in that feedback around the aesthetic, making sure that a high-end market is implemented, and then returning to the commission its prerogative to continue or not if the market fits its vision for the city. Finally, I appreciate the opportunity to be considered, and the core question that we came to with staff today is a matter of when to implement if this market is able to go forward.
Thank you, Tony, for your comments. Your 2 minutes are up.
Yeah, Ceci Velasco has a comment.
Oh, okay.
I do want to say, mostly in matters that deal with Ocean Drive and Lummis Park, vendors need to come and meet with the stakeholders. And this has never come before us until today, or the Art Deco Neighborhood Association officially. We saw it on the agenda, and that's why I think that was comment. So in all of these discussions, the stakeholders have not participated.
Okay, we have Daniel Seraldo. Daniel, you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Daniel Seraldo with Miami Design Preservation League. As someone who's spent a lot of time in the European Riviera, I will tell you that markets are a very core part of the urban fabric of any Riviera town. It sounds like everything I've heard about the markets from our visitors has been positive. I would challenge Ocean Drive Association if they have any documented evidence of complaints from their hotel visitors or restaurant guests, that they should make those public, just like the market made public all of the support that they have for the market. I don't believe it's fair to say that having a market for food during limited time is somehow competition for the restaurants on Ocean Drive, which we've heard in the past from ODA. It sounds like, though, that there isn't support on the commission currently to keep this going. And if that is the case, maybe they could consider Flamingo Park as an alternative. I don't think we should be in the trying to remove activities in places that we're trying to generate resident participation, and would really like to see evidence-based decisions on these. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If we could unmute Mitch Novick.
Good morning, Mitch Novick, owner of the Sherbrooke Hotel. I share the same sentiment as the Ocean Drive Association. And moreover, our county parks charter prohibits the commercialization of our parks. And in addition, the Lummis Park covenant, when it was deeded from the Loomis brothers to the city, there's a restriction against the commercialization and exploitation of our park for profit. Thank you.
And our last comment, we have Elizabeth Latone. If you could please unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes.
Good morning. I know I've seen that market. I've seen the different iterations and the different parks, Collins, et cetera. I'm not real sure why this keeps trying to be forced upon the residents. It's not meant to be in a park. It should be on Lincoln Road or something like that. I also know from the Art Deco Neighborhood Association that they are completely against it. And I would support them as well.
Okay.
Let him one more time.
Okay. Tony Morales, if you could unmute yourself, you'll have 2 minutes. 1 minute.
Because he already spoke.
Since you already spoke.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to reply to the comment on engaging community stakeholders. We did reach out to local community associations such as So Be Safe. In some instances, were documented as having been rejected the opportunity to have a meeting. Ceci, if you recall, we actually met with you and made a formal presentation to the ADCD and had a very warm reception from you in our conversation at a prior iteration of this. And so our attempt to engage, receive feedback, be responsive has been total. We've worked closely with staff and we've responded to the will of the community insofar as the aesthetic and category changes. And so we're hoping that we can move forward with what the commission has authorized in a 6-month pilot and purely are asking to begin that pilot not sooner, but rather later so as to begin in season. So rather than starting tomorrow, to do so in October. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Magazine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would urge, Tony, is if this is something important that you want to see forward, don't give up on those efforts to engage our community stakeholders. I'm not going to be comfortable moving forward with something where the stakeholders of a certain area are saying, no, this isn't the vision that we have. From what I got, they're not saying, no, nothing, but maybe this wasn't the exact vision that they wanted. So to the extent where you think you can work together, continue to do so. But we have some very strong stakeholder groups that really have a very holistic view of that area. I don't think that they are overly protective or saying, no, I don't want anything in my backyard. But be quite frank, they know that area better than I, because they are out there living, breathing it every single day, talking to every business, stakeholder group. So I'm going to be cautious not to overstep my bounds and shove something down their throat that they don't think is conducive for that neighborhood. And I don't see a reason to challenge that assumption. So to the extent where you think you could have some type of product or vision that you could work with those neighborhood stakeholders, continue engaging them. So I'm not a no forever, but until the community would come back and say, we've actually entertained some dialogue and we think we have a clear path forward of something that's acceptable for all stakeholders, I think I'll side with the chair here and want to punt on this item.
Vice Chair Suarez.
I agree with the chair.
Okay, so we'll move it to the full commission with an unfavorable. Or
Ma-
just
Madam-
close it out?
Madam Chair, yeah, I think it should be closed out. I think because we don't have 4 voting members as the committee rules require, I think we should defer to Robert's rules, and with a 0-3 unfavorable, I think the item dies and can be
Okay.
solely revived by the mayor at his discretion to put on the commission agenda, but otherwise it's dead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we have item number 10, which is discussion regarding an art installation on the Fritz Hotel on Ocean Drive. Wait. Yes, and this is sponsored by Commissioner Fernandez, but he did say that we could hear this item.
Yes, he did, and Ceci Velasco from the Ocean Drive Association is here to speak on the item.
Thanks for having me. Art Deco Neighborhood Association, Art Deco Cultural Arts, the enhancement of this district with art. We've been talking about this. The owner of the Fritz Hotel, who coincidentally is also called Fritz, but it's a coincidence, is the accidental hotelier. He invested in the hotel. He saw it was not being managed well. He took over. But his background, he has an art gallery in Amsterdam. He travels back and forth from Europe. He saw this beautiful blank wall, which is the back of Council Tower South. No windows. If you see the attachment, you'll see I kind of did a cut and paste to show what it possibly could look like. He would love to sponsor this, have the projection on the rooftop of the Fritz, project artwork onto that wall to add an attraction and an enhancement to the district. He came to the special events office. However, in order to make it perpetual, we need the approval of the city manager's office and the city commission. Otherwise, it's a short-term situation. He is 100% supportive of following any protocols. The Art in Public Places protocol that I know is in your memo. It is never to be used as advertising, never to be used with logos. It is collaboration with the museum in Amsterdam to promote and to provide major artists. So we'd love to be able to do this, especially during season. I understand some hesitations, and if we could do it during season and revisit it at the end of February, I think that is a wonderful compromise. But we'd love to do more art. As people are leaving Untitled and Scope to walk onto Ocean Drive and to see art rather than just getting up and leaving, I think adds to the dynamic and the district as a whole.
Thank you. Mark Fishman, does this need to go to Art in Public Places?
That's correct, Madam Chair, yes.
Okay. So I would be supportive of this pilot through February 28th and with a referral to Art in Public Places. Colleagues, Commissioner Bott?
I just have a couple of questions. So I love the Rijksmuseum. It's an incredible facility full of really amazing art. But as you said specifically in your preamble, Art Deco. And while I love the Dutch Masters, that doesn't seem like it fits. And so would there be an opportunity to select things that are appropriate in terms of the time frame? And so, you know, as much as A Starry Night is my favorite painting,
Right.
and, you know, The Lady in Gold,
Right.
the Klimt painting is fabulous. I don't know that those necessarily fit into that space. And so would we be able to curate what gets projected, and why would we be limited to that particular museum?
I don't think we are limited to it. I think what he did was try to show that he already had a partnership going to demonstrate that the level and caliber of art, but he's definitely open to us giving some input in Art in Public Places, doing in some input.
And is this being envisioned as a rotating thing? So it's up, like the image is up for a minute or 5 minutes, and then it flips to something else? Or is it's up for a week and it changes? Because what I don't want it to become, you know, the city of Miami has actually actively repealed its LED billboard ordinance. And I don't want this, I understand there'd be covenant that it would never be used for advertising, but is this something that is going to now become a flashing, rotating, revolving, because that would make it hard to sleep? And has there been community outreach to make sure that people who have windows that would be looking into this are welcoming of it and not concerned about what it's going to feel like at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so there are no windows, if you look at it. It's across the alley.
But from oblique, you know, people who are like at an oblique
The
angle.
other people they're all hotels.
Okay.
They're not residents. So you have the Bentley, you have the Fritz, and you have the Barbizon. And those are all hotels.
And
on
the
that-
other two
on that
hotels
block.
are in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
They're very supportive. I have talked to Irene at the Art Deco Neighborhood Association. I did talk to Daniel at MDPL, so we did run it by them. I think we would love to get some background and information from Art and Public Places as to their vision. I don't see it as a rotating. I really do see it as this is an art projection of these particular pieces and not just kind of a,
Right, but so
flip
when,
through.
when you guys hash out the details, there needs to be some thought about, okay, so these are the 5 items, the images that we're going to approve, but how often are they fluctuating? Because if it's every 5 minutes, that's a very different experience than something that's up for a week at a time.
Yep, I agree, yeah.
Sure,
Thank you.
we can discuss the loop running time.
Thank you. I think we have public comment.
We have Daniel Seraldo. If you could please unmute yourself. have
Thank
2
you,
minutes.
Commissioner Daniel Seraldo with Miami Design Preservation League. Ceci did share some of the initial idea with me. Thank you for that. It's a slippery slope, as we all know, with Ocean Drive. And I think it's wise to send this to Art and Public Places to really get their input. A concern that I shared was, what is Van Gogh's connection with Miami Beach? And, did he ever visit, et cetera? Personally, I don't know how many Art Basel visitors are going to be very excited to see Starry Night projected on this side of the building. Maybe I'm, not on the pulse of the modern art world, but I would love to see something where we highlight local artists, or we could have a competition to make something that's really unique when you visit Miami Beach. And then the final thing I hope that can be discussed when it goes to Art and Public Places is that we had previously reached out to that building. We were told that there's a prohibition on projecting or any sort of display on the building due to some of their funding. And so just want to make sure that that building, Council Towers, is a part of this process as well. And again, it's a very slippery slope between great art and tacky. So hopefully with the Art in Public Places, they could direct us in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if I could?
Yes.
Yeah, I love the idea, love the innovativeness. I think it's, refreshing, getting art. While I would never have any intention to want to micromanage, especially something outside of my area of expertise like an art exhibit, can we find some way to incorporate, if this is going to be a static image and it changes seasonally or it changes for a special event weekend like Art Basel, when we get a bit more innovative, have something along the lines like a LTC letter to commission saying, it's Friday, next Wednesday, here's going to be our vision. I don't want to wake up and just be blindsided one day and I pull up Facebook and the community goes, oh, what is the commission doing now allowing this? I don't want to micromanage and say, well, this is what I want, but this is not what I want. But I don't want to be blindsided either if something were just not in line through nobody's fault, but perhaps not what we would be expecting as a community.
Yes, I think the selection process would be transparent and definitely would be announced to the City Commission. Ocean Drive Association as well would not want to be in a position where we're embarrassed by anything that we put out there. As a resident, those were my questions also. So yes, we're very sensitive to the programming ahead of time. I could almost foresee the change being monthly to go along with Culture Crawl, to have something new. So that's kind of how I am thinking about it, and definitely that would be proposed ahead of time. I'm really sensitive to that as well, yeah.
And through the chair, if I may, so Commissioner Magazine, once AIPP makes a motion to approve, we would provide an LTC with the images that were approved, and we can definitely do that from our end.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mark Fishman, we'll send it to Art and Public Places.
Yes, with a recommendation from this
Yeah,
committee? Yes.
favorable, yeah.
Favorable, yes.
You okay?
Thank you very much.
Great. Now we have item number 5, which is discuss take action on Outfront Media Group contract, and this was Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Can we skip and do number 3, and then, if, for aid is here, can somebody contact Chris and see if she's on the
Okay,
way?
we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll hear number 3, discussion on a potential pilot program for a one-way conversion Sheridan Avenue and Royal Palm Avenue from 37th Street to 44th Street, including turn restrictions into 41st Street during weekday and afternoon peak periods, and this is Commissioner Suarez.
Vice Chair Suarez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jose, if you want to tee it up, that'd be great.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members, Jose Gonzalez, Transportation Director and Interim Parking Director. So the last time we were before you was on March 30th, where we presented 2 options for a potential pilot project that would consist of a potential one-way conversion of Royal Palm Avenue and Sheridan Avenue between 40th and 42nd Streets, Monday through Friday during the afternoon peak periods, with the intent of the pilot being to create a bridge, if you will, for internal trips within the city to be able to travel north and south easily and cross 41st Street. At that March 30th committee meeting, this body asked us to conduct a charrette with the community and obtain some feedback, which we did. We held a charrette on May 7th. During the charrette, we presented both options. We also shared with the participants there a QR code where anyone who scanned that would be taken to a survey and they can vote on whether they preferred option 1, option 2, or no option at all, no pilot. We gave the community 2 weeks to express their position on the pilot, and we're now back before you pursuant to your direction to, in essence, seek some direction as to what the next steps are. What I will say is, in terms of the results, it was pretty much evenly distributed, a third, a third, a third. Specifically, it was 35% of respondents preferring option 1, 34% of respondents preferring option 2, and 31% of respondents preferring no pilot at all. So a third, a third, a third.
Vice Chair Suarez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So colleagues, just to reiterate what the intent of the pilot is to have traffic move more freely north and south during peak hours across 41st Street. And so, I take my son every day, not every day, but twice a week to Mathnasium, and it's gridlock, and it can back up like a mile on Prairie. And so I think one of the options was a little bit less aggressive than the other. Option 1 was just restricting westbound turns onto 41st Street.
So I'll quickly describe both options.
Sure.
Option 1 creates a one-way pair with Sheridan Avenue, both lanes of Sheridan Avenue operating northbound only, both lanes of Royal Palm Avenue operating southbound only. So it would create that one-way pair between 40th and 42nd Streets, and it would restrict northbound left turns onto 40th Street would be restricted as well. That's the first option. The second option is a bit simpler. The second option keeps the current flow along both of those avenues, two-way traffic along both of the avenues, and simply restricts left turns onto 40th Street and of course 41st Street as well. Both options restrict turns onto 41st Street along those avenues to create that bridge to be able to go north and south.
And how many people responded to the survey?
A total of 343.
That's okay. That's quite large for some of these surveys. So just so my colleagues are aware, over 2/3 of the responses were in favor of something, right?
Correct.
They want something, a solution. Slightly less than 1/3 didn't want anything. This is just a pilot program, and one of the biggest issues that the three of us have seen on the trail this last year was traffic, congestion, and so hopefully with this program we can alleviate some of the pressure from traffic on 41st Street. And so I think to make things more simple and not have to go through a county approval, moving forward with the one-way pairs, I think could be used as the next step. If this option 2 works well for the year, but I would like to seek support from my colleagues on moving forward with option 2 because the community obviously wants it and something needs to be done with traffic.
Commissioner, if I may just, so option 1 is the one that creates the one-way pair, the one-ways. That's option 1.
Right. So I want the option where it's very simple, where we restrict turns on the west onto 41st Street westbound during peak hours.
Correct. So yes, that
That's
would be
option 2, correct?
2.
Yes. And which, by the way, option 1 got the most, the most votes, 35%, and then option 2.
35 versus 34.
Right. So, and then the no option was 30%?
31.
31%. Okay. So, look, colleagues, the data is there. I mean, people want something. I think it's worth a shot. It's a pilot program. And yeah, I would love to give this a try for the community of in the area.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So these numbers were pretty evenly split, but clearly 2/3 do want to see something. A one-year pilot sounds too long to me. That's not really a pilot. I would recommend 6 months, and then we can move to make it permanent or longer or make changes. But that's where I would stand. Where are my colleagues?
Yeah, thank you for this. Attended the meeting on this, certainly passionate support in multitudes of ways. I wouldn't be in favor of the one-way pairing. Well, I think theoretically that may sound the best. It just creates a lot of confusion. If it was a permanent structure, but trying to reconfigure a one-way street into a two-way street at multiple times per day, I just think it really gets confusing to the community. I agree that, if we're going to do a pilot, let's be flexible and pivotal and maybe have appetite for 6 months. I would also, make sure that if this turns out, not that I'm expecting this to be a total disaster, that we're able to kind of pivot on the fly and not say, well, we're tied into this for 6 months. If after 2 months, it's just like, wow, we really tried. And I commend us for trying, is not working. We have the ability to pull that back. This isn't tying our hands for 6 months. Is it correct?
No, it would be up to 6 months and.
Up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months, and the advantage of a pilot is that it would be nimble and flexible, and we can adjust as we go, including doing away with it if that's we would come back before you before doing so.
Vice Chair?
My only issue is that we want to make sure that this pilot program happens during the peak season, right, where congestion is insane around the area.
Right.
So,
School starts in August, right?
yeah. So we just want to make sure that it carries through to, like Art Basel.
At least the end of the year.
Okay. And make sure. And look, and the best thing about this program, guys, is, the police are actually going to have to be involved. They can't just be in their cars. They're not going to be just standing on the cars. They're actually going to have to be directing traffic. And they're going to have an assignment, and it's not going to just be to monitor. It's going to be to actually direct traffic, at least at these 2 intersections.
Is there any public comment?
We do not have any public comment at the moment.
I think my support for a pilot program is be contingent on Commissioner Suarez answering all the irate resident emails that I'll receive.
Direct dial.
That's going to probably be me.
Are we okay with 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
And if it works, we extend it, right? If
Yeah.
it's successful.
What is a marker for success? You know, I mean, I think you're going to be tracking data, correct?
Before and during, and
yeah.
then we'll present that to the
And
council.
so before the 6-month mark is over, I think we should have an item for neighborhoods and really track the data and say, you know, what is a success? Because if there's like, you know, 20 irate people who just don't like it for whatever reason, or for their valid reasons, but we have thousands of people who truly, you know, enjoy this program that helps their quality of life move from north to south and south to north in Miami Beach. You know, we should take that into consideration with data. So
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll take into account community feedback, of course, but data, more importantly, we're going to be measuring the queues before the pilot and during the pilot to make sure that, you know, the queues are not getting worse, either on Prairie as an unintended consequence, or that's where the data will come in.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Bott.
I would just suggest, I mean, I drive that every day coming home from work. The traffic has gotten much better right now because it's not season and school is starting to wind down. So when you do the before data, just please don't do it like in the middle of July when nobody's here. Do it in August when school's gone back to school, and so that we have something that's more realistic. Because if you're comparing apples to oranges, it won't be so useful. I mean, it hasn't been a challenge to get across 41st for the last week or two, at least.
That's a good point, in which case the 6 months would take us to the beginning of next year, if we go based on that up to 6 months. But we could start in August.
So, okay, so we
Vice
would.
Chair.
So, thank you, Chair. So we would start in August, end of August? Or you just start collecting data in August?
We would start collecting data in August.
Okay.
But we would want to collect data
After school starts.
after school starts, but at the onset of the pilot. The data collection is going to be pretty continuous
Got it.
throughout the duration of the pilot.
And you'll send an LTC of when it starts?
Correct. We do need to,
But we need a commission approval, right? Still?
commission approval
Okay.
is next, so that would be at the, could be at the June or July
Great.
commission meeting.
And if I might, Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Bott.
There's going to need to be a pretty intensive marketing and communication outreach by that department to make sure that everybody in the city knows, not just the neighbors in that neighborhood. So, and reach out to Waze and like do all the education so that you don't have people with road rage trying to make a turn that they can't make. And it, you know, I would suggest that outreach needs to be ongoing. It's not just a one-time deal. And I don't know, you know, who in the city administration reaches out to the mapping apps, but they probably need more lead time than less. So I would encourage us to include that in whatever goes to the commission to be discussed as to making sure that that is incorporated.
Absolutely, Commissioner, thank you. We communicate with the navigation
Okay.
platforms, Waze
Perfect.
and others.
Thank you. Okay,
Okay, and we don't have any public comment, so we can
okay.
move with the item.
So move forward with the pilot. Option 2.
Option 2. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have item
Item
number
number
5.
5, is Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez going to call in on this?
She is not going to be able to call in. I've been talking to her aide, Jackie. She says what we can do is we could potentially refer the item to the full commission for discussion and take action at the commission, if you guys feel comfortable with
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Well, no, he wants to talk about it.
Oh, you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's,
Hello, did you already call the item?
So we'll hear number 5, discuss take action Outfront Media Group contract.
Okay, Jose Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this item is more of an update. When we were before you last month, we mentioned that the prototype shelter is being manufactured, and that is still underway. We expect that likely be within the next 60 days. The location where the prototype will be installed will be in front of Soundscape Park on Washington Avenue, just south of Lincoln Road. That's a good location in terms of visibility. A lot of people will be able to see it. It's also a very active bus stop. So that's an update in terms of the prototype. Once the prototype is accepted by the city, specifically the city manager, then at that point, it's all hands on deck, and it's full fabrication of all the bus shelters and the installation citywide.
Okay, Vice Chair Suarez, did you have a comment?
So how long has it been since we signed a contract and we don't have the official bus stop prototype?
So the commission approved the agreement on September of 2021.
Any reason why it's taking so long?
Well, the process started with the design. Well, even prior to the design, we needed to obtain approvals from the Design Review Board, the Historic Preservation Board. That's a process in and of itself that requires just months to get on the agenda. Once we obtained, we went twice to the DRB, once to the HPB. We received those approvals. Once we did, then the architect began designing the bus shelters. And so that design process took some time. They're currently in the building permit process. We did a dry run with the building departments and.
The only reason I ask is because I think we get emails from someone who complains about the condition of our bus shelters and our bus stops. And, I mean, he sent some images of it just being in like really horrible conditions. And if we have an agreement where these bus shelters are supposed to be upgraded to world-class designs, and it's been almost 2-3 years, we're getting complaints about how it looks, and I used to live next to one, and it wasn't in the best condition. So this agreement in 2021, how long is it for?
It expires, let's see,
And while you're pulling that up, I also have a question about the cleanliness, because I know exactly who you're talking about, and I also hear from somebody in North Beach. Doesn't the agreement state that they need to maintain the bus shelters? And what's happening today? Is it the city that's paying to maintain it, or are they cleaning and doing the sanitation?
Outfront performs the cleaning on, as a matter of fact, on a daily basis of the most active bus stops. They pressure wash. What has been happening is that some of the dirt and the wear and tear of those shelters is such that just pressure washing it cleans it, but they still don't look good. So what Outfront has done is in a 3-phase program, they've basically gone through and repainted bus benches and the seats at the bus shelters. And they've been doing that systematically, and they're now in the last stretch where basically they've repainted all of them and refurbished them.
Were you able to find the end date of the contract?
Yes, it's a 20-year contract with a 5-year option to renew. So if it was executed in 2021, I want to say, so that takes us to 2041 and 2046 with a 5-year extension.
Vice Chair.
And, so Outfront is an advertising company, right?
I'm sorry?
Outfront is an advertising company.
Yes, they are.
And what was I guess what was the revenue share for the city and because I'm assuming part of the deal was to upgrade all the bus shelters and maintain them. But I'm just curious, what was the breakdown of the advertising?
So the contract has various phases, phases 1 through phase 4. We're currently in phase 2 of the contract. During phase 1, the initial phase, which consisted essentially of taking ownership of Outfront taking ownership of all the bus shelters and maintaining them. During that phase, it was a short phase, gross revenue share was 30%. We're currently in phase 2. During phases 2 and 3, the gross revenue share is 10%. During this phase, what's happening is that Outfront is
Excuse me, that's only during phase 2?
phases 2 and 3, and then during phase 4, which is when all the shelters are already in place, it's a 20% gross revenue share, and there's also a minimum annual guarantee that Outfront pays the city.
Okay, but I'm just curious, why is it 10% during phase 2 and then 20%? Why does it jump around?
So in this phase that we're currently in, it's the phase where the about 40 bus shelters are being upgraded from static advertising panels to digital. Digital panels are more lucrative from a financial perspective than the static, because during this phase not all of the digital ads are installed yet. That's why the revenue share is a little lower. Once all the digital ads are installed, then the revenue share increases.
How many bus shelters total do we have?
We have approximately 200.
And all 200 are supposed to be upgraded?
Well, we have 200 bus stops, and the goal of this program is to have a bus shelter at every bus stop. So once all the shelters are in place, we'll have somewhere between 200 to 250 shelters.
And that was part of the original deal with Outfront?
Yes.
Okay. And every single bus shelter will have, I'm assuming, an advertisement?
Yes, but not digital. Some will still have static. Only the more active ones on commercial corridors will have the digital ad displays.
Okay, like I said, we get a lot of complaints about the upkeep. I used to live next to one. I've never seen a pressure wash happen at a bus stop. Unfortunately, the people who go to bus shelter, who take the bus, don't necessarily complain too much. They kind of just accept things the way they are. And so, I want to make sure that we're getting our end of the deal. Because, we see it with our own 2 eyes that they're not in the best conditions. Granted, I know we're going to be upgrading the bus shelters, but, I think in the meantime, certainly we can improve the quality of life for people who do take the bus.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to public comment.
At this time, we don't have any online public comments. Is there any public comment in person?
Public comment in person.
You'll have 2 minutes.
Never seen such a well-dressed group of individuals caring so much about the condition of our bus shelters.
Good morning, Ms. Chair, members of the committee. So no issue on the bus shelters. We actually, this is Mickey Marrero, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. We represent Deco Bike, DBA, City Bike, and happened to be reviewing the agenda, and we noticed some references to bike racks, not the bus shelter specifically. Jose, phone. So we just wanted to make sure, and again, we understand Outfront is a media company, so when we saw a requirement for 100 bike racks to be installed, want to make sure the bike racks are fine if they're part of the bus shelter, but we have, through our contract, which was recently renewed by the city, with City Bike, the exclusivity when it comes to bike share, and we have a significant revenue sharing program with the city. So we just want to make sure that because there's no definition of bike rack and no detailed explanation, that when bike racks are discussed here, it's functionality, bike racks for,
Thank
to and from the
you.
shelters, but not advertising bike racks.
That's exactly right. And
yeah.
I
Thank
got a
you.
call from City Bike last night, and I checked with Jose Gonzalez on it, and bike rack is meant somebody's personal bike that they can attach it and then board the public transit. It's not an advertisement, it's not bike share. So thank you for the question. Good morning.
Molly, here on behalf of Ike Smart City. Before we start, could you just give me a little bit more than 2 minutes? Because I have quite a bit to go over, and I'll do it as quickly as I can. First, just let me give you all a handout.
And while we're waiting for the presentation to begin, I know that I recently had a
Mr. Andrade, can I have one for the record?
meeting with Outfront and a resident, and they gave input on how the bus shelter can be better for resident use, which I really appreciated. And then Commissioner Magazine just showed me something that is so beautiful that you should send it to Outfront as well.
I will, and Madam Chair, if I could just have 15 seconds, and I'll hand it over to our public comment, but I feel so often in our city, the left hand doesn't talk to the right. We just had all of these conversations earlier today about the streetscape, especially in North Beach, about greenifying our places, but we don't incorporate that into things like transportation design. So to the extent where our bus shelters would be able to have green living roofs, not only is that aesthetically pleasing, it's going to help with the cooling of our city with some greenery. So I really think, we have to get better at thinking about things holistically.
Thank you. Ralph?
Thank you. So let me start by filling in some of the details on this contract, which was executed in October 2021, 2.5 years ago, a little more. When that contract was executed, the city gifted or transferred ownership of $1 million of assets in its bus shelters to Outfront for free. And they also granted them the right to advertise, including this 90-10 split, which is astronomical in favor of the vendor, of course. And so we're in phase 2, and this is exactly where Outfront wants to stay in phase 2 and phase 3 as long as they can, so they can keep generating this 90-10 split. When they initially submitted their proposal to the city, their full installation, all 200 some odd bus shelters, were supposed to be installed by October of 2025, next year. It's 2.5 years later, folks. Not a single bus shelter has been installed. And there's a reason for that. They're delaying, and they're delaying because of the flawed business model that the city agreed to in its contract. So the handout that I gave you, I just want to go through this. And I went through it in chronological order as these sections appear in the agreement with the city. So your agreement provides that the bus shelter design shall include design options that respect the vision of the city's initial designs developed by ACAI, Pininfarina Design Team, and included in the ITN. The bus shelter in your packet, which is a skeleton of that original design, you all as commissioners have to decide whether or not this skeleton respects this red dot award-winning Pininfarina design. And this is very important, and I'll get to it at the end as to why it's so important. Section 5.2.2 of the agreement. Now this is an interesting one. The agreement required, specifically, expressly placed the duty on Outfront to apply to the DRB and HPB for the necessary approvals. As far as I know, they haven't applied. The The city applied instead. I have no idea why the city applied. The city is not authorized under the agreement to apply on Outfront's behalf. The city doesn't own the bus shelters. They gifted them, like I said, to Outfront, so I have no idea what standing they have to apply for this bus shelter design. And now what's happened is these DRB approvals, which were obtained over 18 months ago, they're expired because they didn't get a full building permit. So now the city's in a race to potentially try to revive them through some state extension. And the question is, does the commission, do you all want those board approvals to be revived? Because again, the applicant was the wrong party. Outfront is in breach of the agreement. They were supposed to obtain these approvals within 18 months. They didn't apply. They haven't obtained the approvals. So as we speak here, there are no approvals. The city's approvals are gone, and Outfront is in breach of the agreement. Then we get to section 6.1.2. What are Outfront's gross receipts from October 21st through the present? And why does this matter? It matters because structures in first-class like new condition throughout the life of the agreement. That means from day one, October 21st, or whenever it was, 2021, including refurbishing, reconditioning, and if necessary, replacing damaged existing bus shelters, the disgusting things that are out on your sidewalks right now, existing benches, bus shelters, other street furniture, and technological equipment and related components, and shall also be responsible for the cleaning, repairing, or replacement of all dirty or damaged parts thereof. And Commissioner Suarez, you hit the nail on the head. All you need is your own two eyes to know that this maintenance standard is not being complied with. So I think the committee has to ask itself and direct its staff to do a shelter-by-shelter analysis and answer the question. Are these shelters in first-class like new condition? I don't think they are. And ask, are they in compliance with their maintenance standards? Have they replaced any? Have they refurbished any? Have they reconditioned any? I don't think they have. And then finally, to get to the point of why the design matters, okay? The city has a unilateral right of termination if you don't agree. Can I continue? Thank you. Section 15.81 grants the city a unilateral right to terminate the agreement if you don't like the design of the final bus shelter. It's that simple. So, you know, I think you all have to take a look at where you started with this award-winning Pininfarina design to where you've ended up. You know, and the important, and here's what you all need to realize. They're now saying they're going to begin installing in 2026. That's what their new timeline shows, okay? So by the time you get to 2026, it's going to have been 5 years, okay? So all this advertising revenue that they're making, 90% of it, they're keeping, sticking it in their pocket, and this CapEx that they're supposedly going to invest in the bus shelters, it's not true. It's the city's money. You gifted them these bus shelters. They're now going to use the city's own money that they glommed over the last 5 years to now build these bus shelters. This is one of the worst agreements I've ever seen the city enter into. I congratulate my colleague, Michael, because it's probably the best vendor contract I've ever seen. So good job. And that's it. What I would request is that the handout I've given be included in a motion that directs staff to examine the issues raised in this handout and to report back, you know, to the committee and, you know, with their findings. Are these bus shelters in like new condition? What is the revenue share? How much money have they made so far? And you have a perfect opportunity, if you don't want to terminate, to renegotiate this deal. Commissioner Bott, for the better. You asked us to make some concessions on the kiosks with notices and so forth, so it's common practice for this commission to reopen agreements and say, hey, we don't think we're getting as good a deal as we can here. We'd like to see a little bit more here or there. And I think you're in a position to do this. The city is under no obligation to proceed with this agreement. If you don't like the skeleton design of this latest rendering, you don't have to. You just say, I don't like it. This isn't what we signed up for. This isn't what you promised. This isn't what you proposed in your ITN. And you move forward. That's all I have for now. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair, did you want to share something? Outfront is here.
I'll let Outfront speak
Okay.
first.
Mike?
For it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and happy birthday, by the way, belated, Madam Vice Mayor. For the record, Mike Llorente with the law firm of LSN Law 3800 Northeast First Avenue, and we represent Outfront. I mean, wow is the first thing I'll say. Wow. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been following local government for an even longer time. I don't think I've ever seen or heard somebody with frankly no interest even in an existing contract stand before a governing body and urge that body to declare breach for non-performance. There are all kinds of issues here, and I ask us all to take a step back and question the propriety of what we're doing and what we're hearing. There was a lot that was just said that was factually inaccurate, and there was a lot that was just said that I think crossed the line into tortious interference. But I'll stick to the former and correct some of the factual inaccuracies that were just mentioned. Number one, the concept that the city gifted shelters to us. The city did not gift shelters to Outfront. What the city did was take a broken down, dilapidated cluster of shelters that it did not want ownership of and transfer ownership of those shelters, the existing shelters, which will be demolished, to Outfront. It's not a gift, it's a burden. It's a burden. Outfront has the responsibility to operate and maintain those shelters until they are demolished. I'm not sure what gift was being referred to earlier. It's an interesting concept. Number two, the idea that Outfront somehow wants to stay parked in phase two. Outfront is highly incentivized to complete this project. The reason that the rev share oscillates and moves up and down is because during phase two and phase three, Outfront is investing $25 million of its money to create a public asset. Shelters that from the minute they're installed in the ground belong to the city and the city's residents. That's why there's a lower rev share during phase two and phase three, because Outfront is pumping $25 million of its own capital into this project. Outfront's ultimate goal here is to stabilize and complete the project, which comes at the last phase. In terms of design approvals, it's a curious thing that we're here talking about, well, why is it taking so long? And those are legitimate questions that I'm happy to get into. But what you're hearing from, my colleague and friend over here, Ralph, is, guys, delay even further. The concept that has been approved and will be installed in the city right-of-way was approved by the city commission back in May of 22. It was approved by the DRB, it was approved by the HPB. And what you're hearing is, let's start this thing all over again. Let's hit reset and revisit whether you like this design. I mean, it's absurd. And the only thing that would accomplish is further delay. As to why the city applied for permits, the city is applying for permits because this is a city asset. It's not like the devices being peddled by some competitors out there. Okay, from the minute these are installed in the right-of-way, these shelters are city assets. As a result, the city applies for the permits to construct its own assets. Outfront is providing a service, designing and building those shelters on behalf of the city for the benefit of the city residents. The city owns the asset. That's why the city has applied for the permits. Regarding maintenance of existing shelters, I can tell you that Outfront did not expect that 2.5 years later, we would be at this stage. We're all working together, and at the end of the day, recognize that what the city has decided to do is to install a series of custom shelters. Look, if I need a new suit, I can run across the street and grab a suit off the rack at Macy's and be back in this chamber in 10 minutes. But if I go to a tailor with a roll of fabric and I say, make me a new suit, custom, start from scratch, that's going to take longer. And that's essentially what has happened here. Outfront did not agree to replace all of the existing shelters, right, with brand new benches, et cetera, and then demolish those and install the newly approved shelters. Early in the process, there were discussions between Outfront and the city transportation team about how the city wished to allocate the $25 million that Outfront was bringing to the table. The decision was made smartly, I think, to save capital dollars instead of of refurbishing, spending $1 million, $2, $3, $5 million refurbishing the existing shelters, which will be demolished, to save as much money as possible for the new shelters that will be rolled out. Outfront has spent tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars beyond what it expected to spend maintaining the new shelter, the existing shelters. Outfront never planned to remove bus benches, repaint them, bring them back and reinstall them. That was never part of the plan. So Outfront's approach to this has been always one of partnership. Outfront has a wonderful working relationship with the city's transportation team and other departments. In fact, they have calls and have had for a number of years, every other week, many of which I participate in. There's no there there. This item was created as a direct response to a totally separate item regarding kiosks. And the idea that is being used as a cudgel to urge this body, to nudge this body towards some sort of breach with an existing vendor that is performing well is frankly deeply concerning to me as a stakeholder in the city and someone who follows local government closely. So I'm here to answer any questions that anybody may have, but again, I urge us to tread with caution when we're dealing, about a strong relationship, a strong partnership between Outfront and the city of Miami Beach. Thank you very much.
Yes. Vice Chair Suarez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I'm certainly not interested in getting between you guys' pissing match, okay? The only thing I'm concerned about is the quality of our bus shelters now. I think that is a legitimate concern. Like I said, I live next to one, and I don't know if this is Outfront's responsibility, but there was like a homeless guy took a dump next to it and the toilet paper was there and it was there for like a week. And I don't look, I'm not saying that's Outfront's responsibility, but it's not like new condition. And, and look, I'm not repping your colleague over here or trying to carry water from, but on here it says, including refurbishing, reconditioning, and if necessary, replacing damaged existing bus shelters. So, I mean, per the contract now, are you required to remove like a bench if it's like damaged, where the paint's like basically chipping off, and then replace it back? Or does that only happen after the new bus shelters are constructed? So maybe you can help me with that. But look, at a minimum, I'm not trying to get between you guys, and it certainly seems like there's some sort of, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I'm gonna say that. I think up here, our biggest concerns are the quality and the condition of the bus shelters. And if you guys are making money now on advertising, and what apparently looks like to me is a really good deal, 90-10, then there should definitely be a little bit better of an effort to making sure that they're like new.
Commissioner Magazine.
I'm sure. My comments were going to somewhat echo that. I'm not getting in this tit for tat. I think, fair to have staff evaluate this, but I'm also not going to have this, hold up the process and just be held over people's heads. Just want this, clarified. What I'm concerned about is delivering the best product for our residents in the most timely fashion. So whether it be from the vendor or from Jose, the point that was made, why can't we go to Macy's and get our suits there, right? Well, do we have a custom prototype that is prolonging this? What is leading to this delay?
Commissioner, not sure if the mic is on, but.
Push the button.
All right, thank you. We do. The shelters that were approved by the city commission, well, let me take a step back. The vision there was a vision that was set forth by Pininfarina. Those concepts were taken to the city commission. However, when we went out to bid for that design, for the Pininfarina design, it was just unaffordable. We didn't get any bids. So then at that point, we went back to the drawing board and value engineered the shelters, if you will, and then went out with another solicitation. Outfront was the only respondent to that solicitation, and then negotiated the contract with Outfront. But to answer your questions, yes, no other city will have these shelters. You won't see them anywhere else. They're very tailored to Miami Beach, and so that's part of the delay, if you will, in the design process.
If I could ask as a follow-up, if you could send me the design and the prototype drawings, I'd appreciate that, Jose. And then just cutting to the point here, when do we get these shelters online, right? When can we expect the quickest, delivery of these for our residents, for people visiting our community, for our streetscape?
So as soon as the prototype is in place and approved by the city, and that's expected within the next couple of months, according to the latest schedule, once that approval happens, then from that point forward, it's an assembly line of building those shelters, and I'm gonna defer to Outfront in terms of that
What can be
manufacturing
done to
schedule.
speed that up, right? It's a frustration of government of mine, approving a bus shelter. It's been years. What do we need more months for? I'm not assigning blame to anybody, but you tell me how we can make that go faster. Either of you, anybody.
Commissioner, if I may, Madam Chair, I appreciate your sense of urgency here. We certainly share it, and I know Jose and his department do as well. At this point, I think the hardest part of the process is behind us, which is the design approvals, the construction documents. Okay. Once the first prototype is installed, and we expect that to be sometime around September, the city will have an opportunity to evaluate it, confirm that it's ready to move forward with the full rollout. Once that happens, you certainly have our commitment to move expeditiously. We are heavily incentivized to complete this program. So we expect that it can be done within a couple of years. And again, I should mention, right now there are less than 100 shelters. The goal here is to expand that to somewhere closer to 250 shelters. It's going to be a lot of work in a relatively compressed time. I don't know at this point that there's anything that specific that needs to be done, but we certainly share your sense of urgency.
So I guess where I'm going to land on this, if there's valid concerns that staff should evaluate, have them evaluate that, but do so in an expeditious fashion. Don't want this prolonged over, 2 years, but then also on our collective parts, make sure we're delivering this with a sense of urgency.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
And I have a question to Mark Fishman, our city attorney. So it was brought up that the city had done the permits because it's a city asset. Is that legally the correct way, or should it be out front? Because now that there's expired permits, who revises it, us or that?
Madam Chair, that's a good question. I'm going to defer to Gisela Torres from our office, who deals with these contracts directly.
Good morning, Gisela Torres from the City Attorney's Office. So the bus shelters were transferred to them at the time of contract. And then if there's a termination or at the end of the term, the city gets back not just the initial structures that were there, but any of the new structures become city property. So we covered that, but for liability reasons, the structure itself is owned by them during the time they operate the program. But these shelters are going on city right-of-way. So anytime that there's any work done on city right-of-way, the city either joins or can be the applicant. So that's customary. That's not anything that's out of the ordinary, because it's our property. So we would have standing to proceed with the permitting process.
Thank you. Ralph?
Just since we're talking about that, I respectfully disagree with Gisella's opinion on that, and we'll send some legal memo or something to the city to follow up. But, clearly, look, some legal issues have been raised, and I would urge the committee to have your city attorney's office examine these legal issues. I've never seen the city apply on behalf of an applicant in my life, and particularly, so what do you do about the agreement that requires Outfront to apply? You just magically waive that requirement? I don't know how you do that. The city, it's true that the city has to sign off as the owner of the property on a land use application, but I've never seen the city actually apply on behalf of a vendor. So with respect to the 25 million that they're talking about, their CapEx, what this body or the city needs to do is project how much advertising revenue they're going to make between now and 2026. Let's say it's 10 million. Let's say it's 5 million. I don't know what that number is. You've got to deduct that 10 million that they've stuck in their pocket from the gift you gave them from the 25. So it's not 25 million. And that needs to be clear, at least as this commission goes forward. With regard to the standards where they say, we never envisioned painting the bus benches or replacing them. That's what they agreed to. It's in the contract. It says like new, first class, or whatever it says. First class, like new condition. It means what it means, and it sets forth the specific responsibilities, including refurbishing, reconditioning, and replacing existing damaged bus shelters. So whether they meant to sign up for that or not is irrelevant. That's what they signed up for, and the city should hold them to that obligation. Finally, I find it almost comical that Mr. Llorente raises the issue of tortious interference when for the last 4 years, hold on, let me finish, please, because, no, he made a legal point and I need to respond to it.
Guys, we're not going to get in the personal tit for tat.
No, it's not a personal, it's a legal response.
Come on.
He has tortiously interfered with my client's applications.
We're not going to be ruling on any of that stuff.
I understand that, but respectfully, through the chair, can I respond? He has been tortiously, him and his client have been tortiously interfering with my client for the last 4 years at every level, at the commission level, at the HPB, at the DRB. Now they're going to appeal our approvals from the HPB and the DRB. Why? You ask why? Because it's going to create a delay. Why do they want this delay? Because they want a monopoly at their 90-10 split that they have on advertising rights. So I urge you all, get your head out of the sands. This is not a good deal for the city. You have an opportunity to re-examine it. You have options, and I urge you to do that. And I strongly urge the city's legal department to review the legal issues that have been raised. Thank you.
So colleagues, I still know Kristen Rosen Gonzalez because this was her item. I'd like to know
Not yet,
where she wants
no.
this to go.
think,
We've been presented with items, Vice Chair.
I think, if anything from this conversation, let's make sure that the bus shelters as now are being properly upkept. Okay, I think that's at the bare minimum. And so, so Commissioner Gonzalez, this is her item. I'm not going to make a motion on her item. And I don't know, what do we do with this
I'll make a
situation?
motion because I don't want this hanging out there and this tit for tat back and forth. How about a motion to staff to sit here, review the standing of the contract, right? If there's legitimate concerns, if there's breaches of contract, come back and say, here's what went wrong. This is what needs to happen. This is so egregious that we need to cancel the contract, or these are simple measures that can be cured. Take a month at the next public safety, if I can through the chair, this will be my motion. Come back and say, here's the exact standing of the contract. This is what is right, this is what's wrong, and this is what needs to be cured. I would just like a staff analysis as opposed to,
The next public safety is not until July 10th. The next commission meeting is June 26th. Can we have it moved to the full commission, then we can hear it, close it then, or do we need to?
Would that be adequate time for staff?
Jose, was that?
Is that adequate that staff would be able to, you work with legal in advance of the June 26th commission meeting and essentially give us an active standing of the terms of the contract?
Yes, Commissioner.
Fair to both of you
we'll
gentlemen?
work
You think that's a
towards
decent course of action?
Mike, did you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to point out for the record, there is no breach and there are no performance issues. We have been working in partnership with the city for 2.5 years. This didn't come from the staff level up. This came from the dais down. There are no issues. We're happy to come back here in a month. But I just want to be careful about how we're framing the direction to staff because, it strikes me as odd for a direction to be given to evaluate potential breaches or issues of non-performance where staff, who works very closely with our client on a regular basis, has never said a peep about breaches or performance issues. So again, we are happy to do whatever, Commissioner, this body desires. We are happy to be here next week, next month, Commissioner Suarez. We are happy to field any questions and concerns that you, your office, your constituents may have. And I'll tell you, before I represented out front 15 years ago when I was on the government side, I picked up the phone and called them when I had issues or constituents had issues, and they were very responsive. That remains the case. So we are responsive, we are available, but again, I just wanted to be careful about how we frame issues regarding questions of performance because frankly, there have been none.
Vice Chair Suarez.
Maybe if I can offer a friendly advice to your amendment, Commissioner Magazine, before we start going into legal, I guess, saber rattling, let's go with what the community needs, which is to make sure that the bus shelters are kept. So perhaps if there's 150 bus shelters, maybe between now and the next neighborhoods meeting or the commission meeting, we analyze all of them and give them a scale 1 through 10, and we say, all right, this is the condition. These, on a scale of 1 through 10, these are the conditions of each bus shelter. I don't think that's been done for a while now. I think maybe we revisit that. That gives Outfront an ability to correct those issues. But look, I want to make sure that we're clear. We don't want to get between what's going on and between you guys, okay? Because we're not looking to settle any scores up here. Certainly, Ralph has brought up some issues that are concerning, and you sort of explain those issues. But it's similar to the kiosks, and I want to be very careful on a precedent where we go back on our agreements, okay? Because the same thing could have been about the kiosks, and I'm certainly not of the ilk that if we made a decision to move forward and we're legally bound to it.
Well, you're not at this point, but.
I know, but we still gave our word, and
It's
to
really apples and oranges because we haven't performed.
And look,
we've been performing for 2.5 years. There is a record that this city should evaluate to see if they've complied with their agreement. I agree with Commissioner Magazine's motion. It is what is absolutely required. I think the city attorney was under the impression that Outfront had joined in the application to the DRB and HPB. They did not. Again, whatever permits they applied for, they're expired. Could they be revived? Yeah. Wrong party. The city doesn't own the bus shelters. The contract requires Outfront to apply. You are essentially at square one, okay? And that's, I'm not going to say whose fault that is.
I mean, look,
that's where you are. And Mr. Magazine's motion would allow staff or direct staff to look at all these legal issues and make a determination so you don't have liability in the future.
I was trying to find a happy medium where neither of you agreed with what I was doing.
Well, I'm not happy. I wanted you to go further. But
yeah, look, like I said, we're not here to settle scores. Okay, we're here for the community, and both sides have made valid arguments. I just want to make sure that our shelters are being kept in like new condition, first class, like new conditions, and certainly I haven't seen that. Okay, and like you would think that the bus shelters adjacent to City Hall would be kept in first class because that's where the elected goes by. That certainly doesn't seem like the case. So, you know, I don't know where you want to move on this.
Yeah,
on the
I
motion.
actually think that that's in line with what I was thinking, Commissioner, was, you know, staff just doing an analysis of, okay, here's the terms of the contract, how is the company executing under it, right? You know, and if there's things that need to be happening to come up to speed and into good standing with the contract, let's start that process.
Yeah, and look, I mean, look, I understand the whole permit issue, but, you know, let's be honest, that's, you know, that's trying to tank this deal. And, you know, maybe we reserve that right if we find out that all the bus shelters are like completely egregiously like discapped and that they're not a whole deal. But, you know, before we start, you know, putting in the nuclear codes, let's get all our facts right. Let's see the conditions.
I agree.
And let's start from a basis of what the community needs the most.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Are we clear on the motion?
Yeah, so we would, Mark, do you want to take it off or?
So when are you looking for staff to come back and when?
I would like for
Because
it to be at the June 26th commission meeting. If that's too close, then
the-
July 10th
The issue is
committee.
if you're asking staff to go out and evaluate or assess 150 different bus shelters out there and then be able to come up with a report and have it submitted in time to be on the agenda, I think
July 10th?
June is going to be really tight. And I think July will be rough, but we can possibly get there. So whatever your pleasure.
When is the July commission meeting?
I want to say it is July 20th. Let me check. I'll tell you right now.
25th or
25th.
Let's do July commission meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Transportation, you guys are,
Yeah, and just, Commissioner, that includes a legal review of the issues, the legal issues
That
regarding
motion.
who the proper applicant is and so forth.
What relevance does that have, guys? I mean,
Because
honestly.
you're in breach
what-
of the agreement by not having applied.
That's
the relevance.
This is absurd.
They have a contractual obligation to apply, and they're trying to skirt that
I'm not gonna
obligation.
over-engineer this. Let's start with, we'll keep it open-ended with staff, right? Staff go out, evaluate. Jose, if you feel the need to loop in legal, we're gonna leave this in your wheelhouse, right? If you feel the need that there are egregious breaches and it's a legal issue, loop in legal, right? But if this is, okay, we need to adhere to better standards of the bus shelters, right? I don't want to jam anything down anybody's throats. I want to leave this open-ended. I'm trying to do what's best for the community, not one vendor or the other. I want to see the state of our bus shelters. Let's get an analysis there. And if you come back and as part of that process, you go, wow, this is egregious, and we need to raise this to the legal level, loop in legal. But I don't want to constrain us where we're forcing legal to do so, but I also don't want to remove that option if it's necessary.
Okay.
Jose, can you have that done by the July meeting?
July, yes.
Okay.
so we'll have that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so with that.
Thank you.
That was the last item. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Okay, I mean.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, great.